Hey everyone, welcome to my home. And I say that because whenever I post on Facebook, it's really inviting you to my living room for a discussion about something. And today, I mentioned in a couple previous posts that I'm going to share a video talking about my new Facebook protocol. So here I am inviting you to my home. I'm not in my living room, I'm in my son's bedroom right now. But I thought I'd share how I'm changing my Facebook protocols. I kind of laid out the agenda, what I want to talk about today. So and I certainly invite your comments. And again, we're going to talk about negative comments and things like that. We'd like to avoid, but I'm going to talk about this, but let me give you some background in terms of what I see going on. First off, let me start off by saying I love Facebook. I always have, because I've always had some of the best conversations of my life here, where to pick a topic and you dive down and people comment and share their thoughts and insights, and I just learn from so many people. So I love that. I love having access to people to see about your journeys, whether it's for your business or for your kids, or you get married, or your parents, or things like that. I love that aspect. To me, it's been a great way to stay in touch with people's lives, as well as a way to share really great discussions. Hey, Maureen, good to see you. and if people want to chat, you can certainly chat with me on this. But I'm going to talk about my protocols. So here's what I'm thinking of doing. So the background behind this. Well, Facebook's been great, like I said, but over the last few years, things have really taken shape in I would say, not so positive way. So, we've had COVID, obviously, is stirring up a lot of emotions in all of us. I think the issues down south going on with the whole Trump administration and the divisiveness of that kind of political climate also, I think, has made things a little bit more difficult for us. We see people who are, we've seen the uprise of, important things about the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter movement. We've seen more Islamophobia going on there. We've seen a lot of divisiveness and less critical thinking and more partisan behavior. We see people who are struggling with their emotional processing and not being able to acknowledge their biases. And, and we're all getting more triggered. I mean, me too. I get triggered by things that, really upset me or bother me. So that's affecting things. And so now what we're seeing is that, the posts that we all put out there are seeing an increase in trolling behaviors or negative behaviors. And while I loved having a diverse and vast network, and something that, I love, but other people say, why do you have so many diverse people on your profile? Well, I get out there, and I do a lot of talks, and I engage in diverse activities, and so that's why I have a very diverse network. That's just the way it is, like I'm just like that. So I want to just test bringing someone on camera. I'm gonna invite. I want to see if Maureen wants to join me for a little bit, and then I'll see if I can. I can't bring her on camera. Okay, that's fine. I just want to see if I can bring people on camera. That'd be kind of fun. But if you're here, say hello and comment and let me know what you're thinking. So there was a recent post I did where I just shared my take on that barbecue thing, and really what I was kind of pointing out was I was the thing that actually triggered me was the photo. There was a photo of the guy, and I know a lot of people out there in the social media world, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, they're all analyzing these things that are going on. But a very common theme that happens, particularly when it comes to racialized situations, is that they showed a photo of the guy and he's like, hey, look at me, I'm awesome, everything's fantastic. Whereas whenever you show somebody like someone who might be, a person of color, they're usually their head down in chains or in handcuffs and whatnot. And so we've seen studies that show that's a common thing that, shows a little bit of systemic bias, in the system. And, I made the observation that there was something there. I was glad to see there was an article later on confirming what I kind of was noticing, but it triggered a lot of really, negative comments, and it started to get really, really bad because people started engaging in very, very negative behaviors. Now, I personally, my whole history has always been, I've always been somebody who wants to invite people to discuss in my wall, which is, I say, is my living room, but sometimes people go too far, and I know that a lot of people. Hurt people. We all project our pain and damage. Totally. Like, if someone wants to, like the things that I've been through the things that trigger me are like, parenting things about my things about my culture, my religion, things about my weight. These are things that, they when vulnerable people are being attacked, I get triggered. But I think that, no matter how much pain damage we experience, we have to be held accountable for our actions, how we behave, particularly when we're engaging people on Facebook and engaging in discussions. And we also have to sometimes, and I always try to make people feel accountable or try to call things out, but at a certain point you got to let it go because it's too much. I also look at what I personally would do or wouldn't do. So for example, a common thing which happens is, I don't go on other people's pages and shit all over their posts. I don't start cutting them down and things like that. Like unless they're asking for a discussion, maybe I'll give my perspective, or maybe I want to clarify something that's clearly out there or, is wrong. Then I might say something, but very, very rarely do I do that. I often stick to my own kind of wall when people come to my page, and some people have thoughtful discussions. Other people seem to have more negative reasons for being on my page. And I just take pride in the fact that I didn't block or, unfriend people. And, and that latest thing, several people unfriended me. That's fine. I was just expressing an opinion, I wasn't saying everyone's this or everyone's that. I was just saying, here's my take, and what do you think? And some people really kind of lost their minds on that. And okay, that's fine. I do what I do. I am who I am. But, those who really know me know what my values are, what I stand for, how I behave, what kind of person I am, what kind of environment I create, and things like that. I used to brag that I've only blocked or unfriended 2 people in my entire Facebook life. So Facebook, how long have we been around now? 13 years. I now have 13 years, 3,600 whatever friends that have kind of grown over the years. But I think sadly I gotta admit that my protocols have to change, because what happened a couple days ago was insane. Because not only was it causing me emotional challenges, it was hurting other people too. Other people were getting involved and getting upset, and people were behaving in a way that just wasn't really productive. So it has to change. So for me, I'm going to change it because it takes up too much mental space. And the 2 people I blocked or unfriended years ago is because I couldn't sleep. I was thinking about it. They were saying such horrible things about me, my religion, my business, my family, man, talking about cross the line. And it took someone, my friend Sonia Rahman, to say, Bobby, you're being emotionally abused or whatever on this channel. So you need to or being bullied, cyberbullied. So you need to let this person go. And so finally I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to block this person. And I haven't thought about them since. And that's the most important thing to realize. I'd never realized how good that was. But I only did it once. And then I did another one about maybe 3 years ago. It was actually a family, close family friend on my wife's side. And I blocked that guy eventually too. Because again, he just started going after us. And I was like, wow, who does this kind of stuff? But what happens is, if it causes you, mental anguish and you're thinking about it, you can't sleep, that's a sign. But the other thing that happened, particularly recently, is that I realize now it negatively affects other people, right? Someone once commented on my post and was trolling, and then eventually they went after one of my friends in the DMs, and she felt harassed. And I was like, oh my gosh, why are you doing that? Don't do that. Don't go to DMs with people and things like that. And so when their comments make other people feel diminished or upset, or they feel unable to speak up, that's oppressive. And so I think I need to shut that thing down too now. Even though originally I would let them talk, but now I'm like, no, I don't have time for that. It's really nasty behavior. And then I think the other thing I'm going to look at are people who've consistently, repeatedly shown their true colors. And the effort long term for me is not really worth it to try to, bring them on board. Everyone knows that my entire, way of doing things has always been about bridging understanding and uniting people and uniting understanding and trying to focus on kindness, love, empathy, things like that. And I do that a lot on Twitter as well. But I remember during when the George Floyd protests happened, I realized that, it's fine and dandy to be that way, to try to bridge that understanding, because I think that if you bridge the people, particularly who are on the peripherals, we're going to have much more greater sense of having larger allies and unifying people. But there's people who are so far gone that at a certain point, it just doesn't serve the purpose. And so I think it's okay. I started saying, I'm going to start expressing when I'm really angry. Say, no, this is wrong. There's no 2 sides. There's no balance between. Sometimes there's certain things that you cannot say things like, like George Floyd, for example. You cannot say, no, George Floyd deserved what he got. That's BS, right? And anyone says that, no, there's no middle line there. No, this is wrong. What's wrong is wrong. And so I started saying, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to actually, rant and vent and be upset, even though it's not really my way of doing things. And most of you know it's not my way of doing things, but sometimes I will now, or I have. I mean, I don't do it very often. I usually just kind of give my take, my perspective. So that's kind of what I've seen. And so what I want to describe to you are, the types of negative behaviors that we've seen. Some of them are really out there, and some of them are, subtle, but they're still bad. So, but the basic gist is, don't be a jerk, don't be an asshole, right? When you go on people's posts, you're going to the living rooms and their pages, you have to treat them with respect, unless they've said something that's so horrendously, outrageously wrong, like what I said, if someone said George Floyd deserves it, yeah, go after them, call them out. That's fine. You got to be vigilant against those types of people. But what are some negative behaviors? Number one, people making personal attacks. So I've seen people come onto my wall and specifically attack me as a father, me as a leader, me as a public speaker. They've attacked my family and talked about my family, my family's values. That type of personal attack, like that is just absolutely outrageous. And those of you who've done that, seriously, it's unbelievable, and shame on you for even doing such a thing. I would never do that to you. You should never do that to anybody else. Number two, people who hurl insults and name call one another, say race, whatever it is, lefty, libtard. I don't care what the name is. I don't care. I don't like any names, left or right or center, whatever it might be. Name calling just demeans the conversation. It demeans you, and it demeans everything. And it makes you look bad. It makes everyone feel bad. So those to me are probably the worst things people can do. But there's other things that happen. So, for example, people who comment over and over again without acknowledging gaps in their argument or their biases. They're intransigent with their position. They take little responsibility for how their comments affect others. And we've seen that with various people. And again, and you know who they are. Like they do it all the time. They do it on other people's pages. You see it. It's that kind of thing. Like, again, I don't usually do that myself, but that's something we notice. There's another type of person are those who, they can't believe that I or other people are saying such things. Again, it comes with this kind of condescension of, I can't believe you're such a jerk or you're so horrible. Just the best way to just ask the question, please, I'm curious, why do you say that? I like to learn. I like to listen. I like to understand. Another one that's come up a lot is people who comment out of context or with no relevance to the actual post. So if I say, if I talk about one thing, but then they go off on this other tangent, like that also just seems weird, because it seems very projecting and negative, and someone's out there with an agenda. So when you do that, it looks bad. It makes you look bad, but it also takes away from the conversation and what we're trying to talk about, whatever it might be. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a positive or negative thing. It doesn't matter. But I've seen that happen often, particularly with during these last couple of years. One of the worst ones is really the general gist of people who just shit on your posts that don't deserve that kind of crap on it. So, and I'll tell you a little story. There was a guy I knew many years ago. Whenever I posted anything, even things that where I was like, oh, I'm so grateful for, like, let's say, for example, I say, oh, I'm just really, I don't know, I'm going to make this up. But let's say I say, oh, Robin Williams died. I used to love his movies, and really sad that he's gone. Rest in peace. And then someone might say, did you know he was such and such negative? That's bad, man. Like, that's just like, like, don't shit on the post like that. Like, come on. Or another one, if I said, oh, so proud of my son for graduating his elementary school named such and such. Did you know that school has a history of blah, blah? Like, that is not the time or place to talk about those things, right? You're right. And that's what's called shitting on my post or shitting on someone else's post. Okay. If it's a post about celebration or gratitude or love or something like that, that's not the time to do it. You can pick another time to do it, or say, hey, listen, and maybe another time there's a chance to do it, but that's not the time to do it. And one of my friends, who's a professor at UBC, he kept doing that on my post whenever I think I said something nice about how I love Michelle Obama. And then he went on this whole rant about Obama and how he kills babies and whatnot. And I said, look, this is not the time or place for this. Can you? And I said, can we talk? And he said, sure. So we had a conversation. I said, look, can you not control yourself from commenting on those things, like knowing the context and difference between, like if I talk about something political, yeah, go for it. You can, for sure. Can you not tell the difference? And he's like, I just can't help myself. I said, okay, well, what do you want to do? He's like, well, I don't want to see your post anymore, so I'm just going to friend you. I said, okay. And so he did. And I still respect him. I still think he's a great guy. The fact that he couldn't actually do that was kind of funny. And thanks, Diane. Detaching and time to clean up. Yeah, I mean, I'm changing, evolving how I do things. And then I will get into the cleanup of how I'm going to do things. But yeah, but that person, he couldn't stop crapping on people's posts because he was so triggered. And so he unfriended me, which is fine. I'm okay with that, right? Another thing that people do is people who go into DMs and try to forcibly continue public conversations, even with people they don't know. So that happened where one of my friends went into a DM with someone else who had commented on my post, and she felt verbally assaulted and harassed. And no one likes that. And some people do it to me, they send me DMs, and I say very quickly, I don't want to have this conversation here. You either talk about it publicly on that forum, or you book a call with me, depending how close my friendship with that person is, and that's it. I don't want to get into the DMs, because DM is where you get the troll-like sucking, the vacuum there, the negative vortex that you don't want to get into. Then there's the issues of people who are gaslight behavior. So the people who gaslight, they ask questions to stir up trouble. They make these light suggestions or insinuations based on unfounded assumptions, or they go back to a post over and over again weeks later. There was someone who made a comment that absolutely made no sense, but no one chose to respond. They went back a week later and said, how come no one's commenting on this thing? Then they went back a week later, and how come no one's commenting? And then 4 weeks later, I couldn't believe it. And of course, I screenshotted this and captured it, because I've actually captured some of the most interesting and also toxic social media conversation of the last 10 years. I've kept them all in documents. I have them all because when I go out there and talk about social media and cyberbullying and trolling, and I talk about how to engage people and not engage people, I use this stuff as information and fodder because it's fascinating stuff. And for me, part of me was doing this because I'm fascinated by this stuff, by people behavior and things like that, and I'm trying to bridge understanding. But now I realize I need to set certain limits and guide. I mean, I have before, but now I have to set even more limits and guidelines around what we're doing. But it was amazing that the person went back 4 weeks in a row and just kept going back and couldn't understand why people weren't responding, because probably what he said didn't make any sense and nobody wanted to deal with it. So, that's something that gaslighting is also another really big issue. And here's a new one that's coming up for me. I would even consider the people who like a comment where someone engages in the more negative troll-like behaviors that I just described is also culpable and responsible for how that looks. So if someone personally attacks me, or someone hurls an insult and name calls against me or somebody else, and you like that comment, that looks bad on you. Shouldn't do that. And I've been caught in that too. Like, I sometimes made the mistake of liking a comment and someone says, hey, are you saying that you like everything I said? No, I don't. And sometimes I realize that when I like a comment, I don't mean everything they say. I don't agree with everything they say. But you know what? You should avoid that kind of stuff because, yeah, it looks bad. Because now I think, okay, well, basically, if someone says, particularly the really egregious stuff, that you like that comment, then that just means that you're also supporting that behavior. You're supporting what they say and how they say. And that, to me, is also a challenge or a problem. And the other one that just came up recently was people started attacking me for deleting or hiding comments. Now, in history, I haven't really been doing that very much, but recently I've been doing it. What I can tell you, I used to ignore a lot of the gaslighters and the trolls and things like that. And some of my friends engage, and that's fine, but I usually would just ignore it. But now I hide and delete stuff. And here's my policy on this, okay? My take is that if they don't have value to the conversation and are simply personal attacks and bullying, they have no place on my wall or my living room. So I'll delete it, right? There's no sense in having that kind of garbage. If someone says something that I think doesn't have value, but let's say isn't a personal attack, then, or I think it's, it's triggering for some people, right? Then I'll hide it because I don't think people really need to see that kind of stuff. right? So that's kind of how I've adjusted things. But again, these people are everywhere. And the good news is there's lots of amazing people who stand up for things, and they support the being kind, being generous, being thoughtful, focusing on the argumentative logic of things versus projecting their own kind of craziness and damage and things like that. I think that's great. I'm grateful for all the people that do that. There's more of them than there are of the ones who are trolling. But I think all of us have to recognize that sometimes we might engage in troll-like behaviors too. We may go on someone's post and get sucked in. We may start saying stuff. We may start liking comments that we should be liking. And so it's important for us to understand that we all have our own biases and things that make us project. So that's kind of why I bring this up, and I want to be clear on what's going on, because there's a lot going out there. There's lots of things out there that upset me, in terms of and the things that we're all concerned about. We're all overwhelmed with COVID. We're all overwhelmed with the stuff going on with the Trump administration. We're all overwhelmed with the lack of change in all the incidents of Me Too and Black Lives Matter and Islamophobia, where it's tough to deal with the divisiveness. It's tough to deal with the lack of critical thinking and all those emotional biases that come out there. It's tough. It's hard. So that being said, and again, I appreciate all of you listening in on this. If you have comments on on this kind of stuff that are positive, add value to the conversation, and give a good take versus any sort of negative stuff, because that's not what this in the context of this conversation, that's not what it's for. I'm just informing my public, my Facebook friends and my public. This is a public post. Normally, I'm now switching to friends posts only, but this is a public post. So if you're public and you see this, you'll now get a sense of what I'm talking about and what I'm looking at. But that's kind of when you comment on someone's post, what's your intent? Is your intent to make yourself look good? Is your intent to make other people look bad? Is your intent is it self-serving, or is it serving other things? If you want to bring meaning and value to a conversation, it starts with listening and asking questions. Start with that, right? Why do you feel that way? Or what makes you say that? And then listen. Listen to understand versus listening to refute. If you have your own agenda, well, then eventually people will notice, and you'll start engaging in troll-like behaviors, because you'll start going over and over and over again the same thing, and eventually, you're going to get shut out because people are going to say this is not really productive. So, so with that, so I'll give you a lot of information. Here's how I'm evolving things. Number one, my posts from now on will only be friends only, not public. So most of my posts have always been public. I've invited people in the public to see my posts, and now I'm realizing that it's not really as productive as I want it to be. So I'm going to try to do all my posts mostly. Right now, I'm going to do. I'm going to mostly do friends only posts. So if you're my friend, you're a valued community member, and if you can't engage in a valuable way, you will eventually no longer be my friend. Okay, on Facebook. That's just the way it is. I expect people to engage with thoughtfulness and respect and kindness, and like some people say, don't be a jerk. So that's my expectation, and and if I ever engage that way, you can call me out and say, "Oh, Bobby, that's really mean." I remember years ago, someone said, "Bobby, you're being really mean to Rob Ford." I remember, and I agree with them. I said, "You know what? Yeah, I don't need to insult the guy. I can just call out his behaviors that I disagree with." And I'm really big on that too. Even when I disagree with, for example, Trump is a good example. I disagree with a lot of stuff he's doing, and it really upsets me. But never once will I engage in insulting his hair or his weight or any of that other stuff, because people do that. And I don't mind if comedians do that, and I understand that it's a different type of art form, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to fat shame people. I'm not going to make fun of their looks. No, that's not me. And but I'm going to call out behaviors. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on the behaviors. And that's where, I try to teach my kids is just focus on behaviors and things that you find compelling and challenging. And you can focus on argumentative logic and, and try to avoid all the logical fallacies that we all have. And we all do it sometimes. I get anecdotal sometimes, and that's okay. But, that's don't be a jerk is really the best thing. So most of my posts are going to be friends only. Some posts are going to be friends only minus the people who have exhibited troll-like behaviors on that topic. So, one of my friends, who's no longer my friend anymore, apparently he's blocked me. It was about Black Lives Matter, and he started engaging me on Black Lives Matter. And then if he was still my friend, I would just eliminate him from the conversation because he was very negative and toxic and just went down this really negative path. So I removed him. So most of my posts are going to be friends only from now on. Some will be public, and some will be friends minus the more, I'm going to say, I don't say toxic, the people who are more uber sensitive to engaging in a positive way, and they can't do it. So I'll eliminate those. But generally speaking, friends only, which is sad because I liked having the public thing, but that's okay. I think it serves to protect a lot of people, including my family, my wife, my kids, my friends, and things like that. Then going to comments that are personal. If you come to my profile on my wall and you comment in a way that's a personal attack or insults anybody, myself or anyone else, it will be deleted. Straight up. Number 2, if you have comments that don't add value to the conversation or meant to trigger, I think they're meant to trigger, they'll be hidden. Okay? If comments are continued abuses, in other words, if you continue to comment in a way that is abusive and negative and toxic and things like that, then that comment will be deleted and you will be unfriended or blocked, depending on how egregious it is. Now, the truth is sometimes I will ignore comments, that particularly if some of my other valued friends who are meaningful in their engagement, they engage in them. Now, if it starts to really get crazy or violates the rules of games, then I'll delete it. But for the most part, I'll let those comments lie. And then going to friend invites. I'm only going to invite, if people want to be my friends on Facebook, only people I know or that I inherently trust or who demonstrate a meaningful, a brand of how they engage people and add value to the discussions on Facebook. I will unfriend people if they engage in those toxic behaviors on numerous occasions. I will block people if they personally engage in attacks on me, my family, or my friends. That's it. And despite all that, you are all still invited to engage on anything that I post about, as long as you do it properly. Don't be a jerk. Respect people, and try to add value to each other's lives. That's really the main thing that I want to talk about and share. And what I found is I'm finding a lot of toxic behaviors all over the place. Again, we know this. The environment right now is difficult for us. We're all home, and it's challenging, and I totally get it. But we also have to be more mindful of that and work together and unite and get through this together. We're all going through a lot. I'm going through a lot. My business was severely impacted. And right now my son is home because he, the school is shut down, grade 7 and 8 for 14 days. And, we're all going through the overwhelm of, the uncertainty aspect of what's going on, the overwhelm of information, misinformation, tasks, like even my dishes, they're doing the dishes and cooking is still very overwhelming. So we're all dealing with that. And then there's the whole, and then when you have uncertainty and when you have overwhelm, you're going to have what's called, challenges with our mental well-being. So, we all have to work together. And those who know me, I like to think they know that I'm a person of heart, of kindness, of love, and empathy, someone who's trying to unify people. And some people call me a divider. They've left me already on Facebook. I didn't understand why they said it. Those who think have left me as a friend and think I'm crazy or out there or whatnot. I realize now that it's probably best that you go, and that's okay. It's better for me. It's better for you. It's better for my friends, and that's just the way it is. So these are my protocols. If you have any questions or any comments on what I talked about, you always have this thing to look to. I'm going to post this video actually on YouTube, so I'll always have it in case someone's not clear. But yeah, the general gist is, look, we're all going through stuff, but don't be a jerk. And if you're going to comment on people's stuff, do it in a thoughtful, appropriate way. And if it's something you really, really disagree with, then say why you disagree. Use it from like a cogent, argumentative point of view without personally attacking that person. That's really the way to go. And then and ask questions to try to understand and listen to that person better. That's going to go a long way, right? You can disagree with people without putting them down. You can have an alternative point of view without being a jerk. You can share your thoughts and ideas and opinions in a manner that brings value and meaning to the conversation without being divisive, without being troll-like, without engaging those behaviors. Because if you don't, then what's going to happen is people are going to associate your behavior with the movement. You know, a person who's troll-like about issue A or issue B or issue C, people start to think, well, I guess issue A, B, and C is full of these troll-like people, and I'm now having a negative feeling about such and such issue. And I see it all the time, you know, no matter what the issue is, right? So, you know, obviously there's going to be exceptions, there's going to be outliers, things like that. But, you know, you want to avoid that. If you truly believe in a cause, wouldn't you want to engage in that cause in the most productive way possible? That is how you make change. The way you make change, whatever it might be. And I'm giving you the secrets of my TED Talk, but basically, if you want to create positive change, number one is you start with caring. You care in a genuine, authentic way about people and understand who they are, where they come from. Number two, you communicate with them in a very thoughtful, productive, but also proactive way to get to the key issues. And then if you care genuinely and you communicate proactively, then you create a connection. And once you create that connection, now what do you do with that connection? Then you work on building several connections to create what we call community. And if you've shown the care, and you communicate proactively, and you create the connection, you create a community, that's when you create change, right? So if you want to create change for your cause or issue, whatever it is you care about, and we all care about different things, right? Then that's what you do. The other way doesn't work. This is the way to do it. As Mandalorian would say, this is the way. So thank you so much for sharing with me today. I hope you found this really helpful and useful. I'm going to add more of what I talked about actually in the post itself, so you see what I'm laying out here. But I do thank you for joining me today, and I do appreciate you guys watching. All right, all the best. Take care. Let's get through this together. Love you all. Bye.